You may very well be asked to be a reviewer because you are great at pastoral conversations. And we just need to talk a little bit about pastoral conversations and review, because I think for me, they are different hats. You will also come with other hats that you wear in relationships with other people. So you may be an archdeacon, you may be a bishop, you may be a head teacher, you may be a coach, you may be all sorts of things. You wear different hats. But I think what I want to say to you is the powerfulness of a conversation comes when we are both doing what we think we're doing and that we have consented to do that. So staying in your hat as a reviewer is really important. And if you are tempted to change hats, please ask permission, and please ask permission in a way that they can choose to say yes or no. And know that if you do change hats, you have taken the review away from them and that you are now offering them something else. That means at the end of this conversation, they won't have had a full review. They will have had a review and something else, and they need to be really clear whether that is okay for them or not. So I guess the most likely situation for that to happen is, as Bishop June said in the interview that we did for Llandaff, if the panic button needs to be pressed and there is a big issue emerging. And I would say a few things, and I say this from experience, not from philosophical thinking. I think number one, name it and don't dive in. It feels like that's something that needs attention. It sounds like a different conversation is useful here. Ask them, is that something that you want to do now? Because if it is, we can do that, and it means you won't have had your review conversation. I need to check with you that that's okay. If you change hats without consent, and if you're a minister, you will be brilliant at this, and it will be the best part of your ministry, except when it's not. Unless you ask what you're trying to do in service of empowering them, because you recognise there's a need and you care and all those really important things, if you stop the review and make it something else without asking, you are actually taking away their personal power. And if this situation is acute, that might be the only tiny thing they have left. So we need to be sensitive and we need to ask. And the other thing that I would say is that sometimes people don't want to talk about something. And often we make quite sophisticated attempts into asking questions that we hope will enlighten the situation. Be straight with people, I would say. Maybe just say, are we avoiding something? It feels like we might be avoiding talking about something. And actually, if I was going to be really brave and I was a reviewer, what I would say to somebody is, feels like we're avoiding that. We can. And it feels like you need to pay some good attention to that. Is it useful in this review for us to think about how you might do that? And it reminds me of one conversation that I had with a minister many years ago, where I actually said to them, you don't have to tell me what it is, and I will not ask you. And it feels as though we need to do some good work on how you can get the support that you need. Now, at the end of that conversation, they had some clarity. Most of the work they'd done silently inside. Mostly they didn't say much to me, but I was asking questions that were enabling them to process. At the end of the conversation, they said it was useful. I kept checking in. Otherwise, that would have been really weird. I saw them about 6 or 9 months later in a completely different context, and they looked totally different. It was absolutely extraordinary. And I just went up to them and said, I think we may have spoken a few months ago. I'm not going to ask you about it or talk to you about it, but I want to say it looks to me as though you've done something and you look completely different. And I hope that that's been a really good process for you. And they said it had. respecting boundaries really matters, I think. Yeah, and don't think that they have to deal with stuff with you. It might be that they need to deal with it with you, but you might find a better way is to name it and to support them to do some good thinking about it elsewhere. The only exception, of course, would be if some massive safeguarding thing comes up and you actually have to turn the review into a safeguarding reporting meeting, and that would be slightly different. And do get some advice from St Padans about how to manage that, and you will also have advice from your own safeguarding training in your diocese, because that is a situation where actually you may have to change hats, and if that happens, then you will have to take power over them briefly, and you'll have to reschedule the rest of the review.